And I said to somebody like my dad, I was like, is there any better feeling than fresh tape on a hockey stick? And then I had this like light bulb moment of just, oh my God, fresh tape.
Was there ever a moment when you kind of realized, okay, this is actually working?
And had this epiphany in like the parking lot. LeBron James comes through and he walks away going, yo, that's a station. And the reason that those three things are more important to me than view counts or engagement metrics is because...
Hello and welcome to Final, your exclusive behind-the-scenes look at just what goes into running a modern media agency. I'm your host, Connor Aidan, and I'm joined today with founder and CEO of Fresh Tape Media, Jared Kleinstein. Woo! Jared, how's it going?
Fantastic. I think that my daughter's in the office today, so we just are hoping that she hasn't, melted down too much upstairs or eaten too many chips and gummies because she associates this place with sugar.
Yeah, I mean, if we hear some like little pitter patter on the rooftop, it could just be her.
It'd be really cute too. Like most people, the clomping is not cute, but pitter patter.
A little pitter patter is a good way to spice up the morning. But yeah, it's so great to have you on today, and I think it's very fitting for our first episode. Especially because this is coming on around the time of Fresh Tape's anniversary, but to talk about the birth and founding of Fresh Tape.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I'm ready to jump right into it if you are.
Sweet.
I'm second guessing saying birthing now because it's like a bit weird, but it's kind of like a baby.
It feels like my baby. It always will be like my baby. I think that it's one of the reasons that I feel like Fresh Tape is pretty special to me versus like how a lot of people think of why they start companies, and they have these goals of, I'm going to start a company in 2 years. I'm going to be acquired by this place. And then I'm going to start another company. What I love about Fresh Tape is that if you said to me right now, hey, you've sold Fresh Tape, which I have no intention of doing. What are you going to do? I would be like, oh, I just want to do it all over again. Like, I love what we built, how it was built. I love the whole process. I love being a tiny company in the back of my house. And I love being a much bigger company with an office campus and a full-time team. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to get into all of that. But I would love to take us back in time, what were kind of the events that inspired you to go off and make Fresh Tape? Because I know there's some leading up to it.
For sure. So when I started Fresh Tape, it wasn't because I had these grandiose dreams of being an entrepreneur and starting a company and growing it. I was in a unique position. Fein had just shut down. So I had this dream job. I literally don't think, as much as I love everything we're doing here, working in sports in 2016 as the head of sports for Fein was the most extraordinary opportunity and experience. I was like going from Super Bowl to the Olympics in Rio to Wimbledon. Well, I guess Wimbledon was before Rio, but anyway. And I worked with great friends who I'm still close with today, and it was extraordinary. And then on October 27th, I believe it was, we all went into work what we thought would be like a sort of normal day and found out we all lost our jobs. So Fein shutting down was, a curse for the world, but kind of a weird blessing for me because I had to make a choice. I was living in New York. I'd been there for 8 years, and I had this sort of blank slate of just what do I want to do with my life? And I had opportunities. I'd been interviewing at a few of the sports leagues and a few different brands. Funny enough, everywhere I interviewed, I still am close with the people and either work with them still today or have good friendships with them. And I didn't know what I wanted. I knew that I went to like a weird art museum, fantastic art museum. I had a weird day at Dia Beacon in upstate New York. And I wrote down all these notes of what I wanted to do with my life and who I admired. And when I looked back on it a few days later, I realized that I admired a lot of entrepreneurs. And of my friends, I wasn't picking the ones who were the richest. I was picking the ones who had started their own companies. And that's subsequently led to a night of drinks with a guy named Andrew Barge, who I've been giving credit to this for way too many years. He said to me at the Ace Hotel in New York, he said, you should just do your own thing. And I said, I don't want to do my own thing. I like being with people. I don't want to be a consultant. And he said, okay, start an agency. And I said, I've never worked at an agency. How could I start something that I have no context on how they work or anything? And he goes, you'll figure it out. all I know is that our clients will still work with you, because Andrew worked on the Twitter sports team with me. And I was like, I wonder if he's just saying that to be nice or if it's the truth. So the next day I made a couple calls. I called Major League Soccer, Amanda Vandervoort, who's now the president of, I believe, USL. So I called Amanda Vandervoort and I said, would you consider working with me if I started my own thing? And she said, yeah, sure. We need some help with some social strategy for our Facebook Live broadcast. I was like, sick. And then I called Ashley Atwell and Kevin Estevez from the NBA. And I said, would you work with me? And they said, yeah, we could use some help for All-Star. And the good news was I had no specific skill set. All I knew was that if they had a challenge, I could help them solve it. So December of 2016, I decided, yeah, I think I'm going to start my own thing. And then officially launched Fresh Tape on January 6th, 7th?
6th, I think.
6th.
So was it just you at the beginning on January?
Yeah. Funny enough, I called it We when I described the company as an agency, because I knew I would not survive alone. Even when it was just me, there's a few reasons Fresh Tape or whatever I had started never could have worked as Jared Kleinstein LLC. The first is I would be so lonely. I hate being like alone in an environment, even if I'm in a co-working space or like around other people. I just would feel totally isolated professionally. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is I have no marketable skills. So if I told a client that I could do something, it would require hiring somebody else to work on it with me from day one. So I knew that this would become a we either on a project basis or as a company real soon after it started. So it became sort of something that was explained as an agency and as a production company pretty early on in the early emails of what it was going to be.
And why Fresh Tape, though? What the name? Where's
the
that?
name? Well, fun fact, it was not Fresh Tape in December of 2016. It was, I have done a bunch of word associations with like things that were relatable to me. I looked at it the other day. It included the words like Wilder, because I look like Gene Wilder, mole, because I have 2 moles on my face. If you want to zoom. I was really embarrassed of them growing up. Now I'm just like, I'm married and I have a kid. I don't really care. And a bunch of other terrible things. But the thing I landed on was Toco Media, which was, it stood for TO, Toronto, which is where I was born, and CO, Colorado, where I grew up. And I had this logo with a Canadian flag and a Colorado flag combined, and I was like pretty set on it. But I hadn't launched the company yet. I was just telling people about it. And then Jan 1, New Year's Day, 2017, I was playing pond hockey with my family as like a New Year's Day tradition. And I said to somebody like my dad, I was like, is there any better feeling than Fresh Tape on a hockey stick? And then I had this like light bulb moment of just, oh my God, Fresh Tape, videotape. It's sticky. It's sort of like a pun and a million puns that I can come from this. That's the company name. And I didn't know if it was going to be, Fresh Tape Creative or Media or something like that. So I sent a poll around to like 20 of my friends, and Fresh Tape Media won.
It's so good because it's tape and videotape,
and it's fresh,
and it's
fresh,
always cool,
new, cool,
always
changing,
sick, always cool. But yeah, going back to what you said before, what was it like those first few hires? Like, when did Max kind of enter the picture?
Sure. So at first, the first few contractors were based on just skill sets needed for projects. So hired Lawrence Becker for the NBA All-Star Game to do a set fabrication of a miniature jazz club for New Orleans for the NBA All-Star Game in 2017, and then hired Max Huggins for some edits, and he and I had worked together when I was at Vine, and was starting to build out the roster. Caleb Natali doing some editing for me, a roster of people that had great skills. Our first big like media day project, a big budget, was the Team USA Media Summit in Park City in 2017. We were hired by a combination of people, including Hannah Miller, Coyote Marino, and Alana Moritz. And Alana is an extraordinarily skilled creator, manager, and I had met her from back in the day when I was working at Vine. And Joey Maestas was at Team USA right before the project, and then he left, but he still, pushed for us to get that gig. And I needed shooters, I needed editors, and I needed to be nimble. So I brought in Max Huggins from Clemson and Andy Turner also from Clemson. And we had so much fun. Like the group, we just had a blast working on this together, and we loved working with the Team USA team, including Alana. So fast forward a bit, I saw Max had an Instagram post that he was in Connecticut, and I was like, people from Clemson don't go to Connecticut unless they are interviewing at ESPN. So I sent him a text like, ESPN? And he sent me some coy response admitting it, and then said, hey, so what about Denver? And he and I had this great sort of realization that if I was going to grow this business and I was going to keep hiring creatives, it'd be great to have one person who could really lead that and be the creative director. And from his perspective, his brother was living here in Parker. It was a perfect fit. So he and Savannah picked up his wife at the time. I don't know if they were engaged yet, but they picked up and moved to Denver. He was hire number one. We announced it that January of 2018. And then a few months later, when Alana was done at Team USA, we snagged her and brought her to our team and never looked back.
Nice. And what were those first few years like? Because I know it was literally homegrown, right?
Yes, it was a unique experience working in the back of our house. I was living with my now wife in a house just off of Wash Park here in Denver. People hear house in Wash Park, they're like, oh, it must be a sick house. Like this house, not anything special. There were no doors other than one bathroom that actually closed. You could, like every door, kind of like the wind could lightly blow it. There were no locks. The office that I started the company in there was in, actually that was the second office. The first office was a house I shared with my friend Shauna, and the back room where I put my desk was a former synagogue, but like a synagogue for 10 people, like the size of this podcast room. So then when I moved into this house with Mel, we brought Max and Alana in, and it was, I want to say from about here on this couch to where you are, and I don't know, a few feet past your toes. It was tight quarters, and it was 3 feet from our bedroom, and you had to pass the bathroom and the kitchen to get to it. So every morning Max would walk in and my wife would like get out of the shower and be like, hi, Max. Good to see you. And I would cook breakfast there. And my dog, Manny, who's upstairs somewhere, was a puppy with us, just being raised at our feet in these desks. We'd film in the garage. It was a blast.
And when did you feel it was, or what caused it to feel like it was the right time to move into an office?
I think not only did we know that Mel and I weren't going to stay there forever, but Max and Alana were so patient, and they never complained about the office. But it was pretty obvious to everybody that we needed something new. We needed a real space. And the thing we were excited about was we needed a space where we can also film. But we wanted to find an office or a studio that had places to film. So we found this space called Denver Open Media on 700 Calumet over here. And they had a cyc wall and they had a green screen studio. And we thought, wait, we can get co-working space in here and use these facilities to feel like a real production company. And it was too good of a fit for us cost-wise and space-wise not to move in. It was a couple $100 a month, and we had access to these extraordinary facilities. So it made perfect sense.
Was there ever a moment when you kind of realized like, okay, this is actually working? Like we are succeeding at what we want to do. Everything's kind of like coming into play.
Hold on a sec. Ava's calling. Let me just make sure my daughter's alive. Sounds fantastic. We now have a new guest.
Yes.
This is Ava Ruth.
I need my chips.
You need your chips?
Yeah.
I think we left the chips upstairs, but we have our popcorn if you want it. But you can play with your book. We'll see how this goes.
We'll see.
This
We'll
is
see.
parenting. The question was
there ever a moment where it felt like it clicked? Like, okay, what we're doing is actually working. We're actually succeeding at what we want to do.
I think, that moment was, CFP 2018, when we announced that Max was going to be full-time. And we made some like goofy videos announcing it. But we were on set creating content for Twitter and for the College Football National Championship. And the clients were having a great time. The athletes themselves were having a great time. The content looked amazing. There are GIFs and content produced from that shoot that still get used today of some of the biggest athletes in sports. Tua came through, Jalen Hurts. Like, we had extraordinary names that were there that were just still college kids. And I think this experience of like, we had a big footprint, we built a really cool set design. It just showed all the different things that we could do as a company, and creating like long-lasting relationships with the clients. Really, like, that solidified years and years of relationships and friendships.
And when did you kind of realize that it was time to expand the team even further beyond the kind of starting three?
For sure. I think that end of 2018, we kept hiring contractors for projects and had really great experiences with them. And Max and Alana went on a shoot for, I think it was NASCAR Homestead in Miami, and they had this really great experience with Avalon Koenig. We'd gotten a reference for her from Andrew Stewart, who had been familiar with her work. And they came back and they said, she's the kind of person who we could just trust. We could just say, here's a project, she'll figure it out. And it was, considering we were sort of at capacity with the amount of projects we could take on, we realized, like, okay, all we really care about is high quality content, trust, and is the person like a good human being to hang out with. So gave Av the offer. She came a few months later. And then soon after that, the biggest issue we're running into is that I was still making the contracts. And I like to think I'm a details person, but I'm also in a million places at once. Mm-hmm. So we knew we needed to get buttoned up. And we needed somebody who could run ops and can sort of oversee the team. And we interviewed a bunch of really good like Excel whizzes and like people that knew numbers, knew how to run an office, previous office managers. And then Gabby, I think I ran into Gabby Carrier, who's now Gabby Akinsanya, at an Avs game or a Nuggets game. And her and I had been friends from when she was at Major League Soccer. And we're struggling to find the right person. And I texted somebody at the Rapids and I was like, hey, Dylan Gannon, who's now at ESPN, DG, would Gabby ever look for a new job? And he's like, I'll ask. And then she came in to interview, and it was one of those things where it was like, it just felt like she already worked there in the interview, and gave her an offer almost immediately after the interview, and she became part of the team, and we never looked back.
So many. I know it seemed like it really ramped up too in like the years following. Like it became 7 and then almost doubled in like 1 year, right?
Yeah, it was like 7, 8, and then we hired a bunch of interns. Soon after Gabs, I think Andrew was the next full time, and then we just kept hiring people for slightly more specialized roles, but also people that could handle a lot of different things. Like Gabby, yeah, she was hired for ops and for things around the office, and all of a sudden she was directing on set, and she was a better director than I ever was. And I was beforehand like the director. Like when we were with Top Talent, I was directing. And then Gabby takes on a set, and we were like, oh my God, she's so much better than us. She's so much better than me. This is fantastic. And like the best thing about hiring over the years is constantly hiring people who are more talented than me in every single skill set. There's nothing left at the company that I'm the best at. I am just the generalist with a bunch of really talented people that are really good at their jobs.
Slight tangent. But what do you think makes Fresh Tape Fresh Tape? Like what is its kind of core essence?
The core essence of Fresh Tape is unique ideas for every client and every project. We try to be informed by the past. We try to like come into a brainstorming session thinking about the things we've worked on in the past, but always thinking about a new spin. Everything should feel fresh. We're rarely, I'll talk to Ava's foot and the microphone. We're rarely doing something that is formulaic or, repeat. It's things feel different. So I think that what makes it fresh is even if you've seen something before, we like to put a new take on it, a new spin. And I think that it's also the experience is joyful. We have, our tagline motto. I don't even know if we ever decided what it is earmuff. Make cool shit and bring joy. Did you earmuff? And I think that ethos is sort of like a really important aspect of how we run our business. Yeah, pajamas. One of the things that makes us different is we're not a traditional workplace. Like nobody walks into this office and thinks, I am Dada. Nobody thinks that this is a traditional workspace when they walk in. Like whether it's the way people are dressed, whether it's the open office environment, it's just a different kind of workspace. Am I Ava? That's a silly question. You're Ava.
When it comes to the kind of the projects that we work on, when do you feel like, oh, we've like done a great job, we've knocked it out of the park? Like, what are you kind of looking for that?
So there's 3 criteria that I care about for our company. Number 1 is the client happy? Are the people that are paying the bills, are they happy with the project? Number 2 is the talent happy? Maybe the best moment in Fresh Tape history happened a month into its existence when at NBA All-Star, we did a shoot for Foot Locker in the NBA with these shoes and Twitter. And LeBron James comes through. And it was fast. He walked up to the set, filmed, walked away. And he walks away going, yo, that's a station like that. And I show people that video still today because I've never felt more like the clients watching. They're like, oh, LeBron's happy. And I'm like, hey, LeBron's happy. The content looks great. People used it for memes after. So it's really important that the talent that comes on the set has a good experience in addition to the client. And then the last is the content great? Right? Like, do we look at the content and think this looks good? And the reason that those 3 things are more important to me than view counts or engagement metrics is because there's only so much we can control, right? Like, we don't really manage distribution for most of this content. When it comes to like valuing it based on engagement, that doesn't really matter as much to us because we aren't the ones hitting post. We can't really be setting the social strategy as a result. And there's outside forces that could change things. We had this really fun shoot for the NFL in 2020, February of 2020 or January, February of 2020 was the Pro Bowl. And we had this red carpet mirror camera that we were so proud of. We loved how it looked. We loved what like the deliverables were going to be coming out of it. And unfortunately that day, Kobe Bryant passed away. And almost none of the content saw light of day. Nobody really wanted to be celebratory at that Pro Bowl. People were thinking about Kobe. We weren't thinking about dances at an NFL Pro Bowl. So there's only so much we can control. And for those 3 things, is the client happy? Is the talent happy? And does the content look good? That's all that matters to us in the end of the day.
And now that we've kind of grown so much to like a full 15-person team, how has the day-to-day kind of changed for you?
Well, everything is more, in my role, is more over like reviewing and making sure that things don't go wrong like at the highest level, and less so creating them in the details themselves. So an example would be contracts. I used to write the contracts, review my own contracts, send the contracts. Now it's just important that I make sure that the contract structures are good, that the distribution methods are good, and that if they need high level review, I can do that. Content. We have people producing the content and reviewing the content. I try to sort of set standards for the team of what they know I'll like, and when I'm seeing content being produced by our team. But day to day, I don't really need to make sure that the color looks good on a photo. So my day to day nowadays is much more focused on managing the team. There's a lot of individual direct reports I have. So making sure that they're supported and that they have the resources they need for their teams.
Speaking of like kind of looking forward, like what does the future of Fresh Tape look like to you?
Great question. I think Fresh Tape is always going to evolve, but it's going to have certain core principles to it. So number 1, we will, as far as I can see into the future, we will be doing creative services for clients. Right? We are going to be creating content. we are focused on creating great experiences and entertaining content for our clients. That's not going to change. In addition to that, I see us continuing to invest in various things that either advance our team or the creative community at large. Just like how Gondola was a spinoff from Fresh Tape Admin, I think that we can be continuing to innovate based on our needs and coming up with unique things, while also coming up with tools that would help the industry at large. And then building a footprint and impact in the community. So we own this building that we're in. We own, next door and the studio behind, and I would love to be a part of this transformation of this neighborhood in Denver. The Santa Fe Arts District is really wonderful, and it still has a lot of room for growth. So I want to really be this like a place that's not just an employer, but also like has a footprint where young creatives are engaged here and feel like home when they walk in this office.
You kind of just mentioned it just now, but I did want to mention that you are not the founder of just one company, but also another one. And so after
T-Boeing LLC.
T-Boeing. 3.
I think I shut down the LLC. So I think that it's just a couple right now. Just a couple.
So after years of Fresh Tape, what kind of inspired you to go out on a new venture that ended up becoming Gondola?
Well, luckily it never felt like a fully new adventure. It felt like this added spice to everyday life here. I didn't start Gondola with the intention of building a second company. We just needed something for Fresh Tape. We needed to be able to track our work. We were producing this extraordinary content and straight up like copying links into Google Sheets. It was just not the right experience for tracking your work. We would paste the amount of views that a video had, and then within 10 minutes that view count was inaccurate. So we just had an engineer, Ralph Holzman, who I used to work with at Fein, build a very basic scraper system with a database that could plug this content in. And we used it for a year and a half without telling people, because it wasn't supposed to be this big thing. It was just supposed to be an internal tool to make our lives easier, and to create value for our clients. Once we added the feature of who on our team worked on what, and had this epiphany in like the parking lot of, wait, if you could see who made any video, like who the videographer was or who the editor was, we've made IMDb for social. We need to like tell people about this. And the only reason it took us so long is because we were also trying to do this while running Fresh Tape and not leaving it entirely. Like most people that build, software products like Gondola, that's what they're doing. That's it, right? They'll quit their job and do it full time. This has always been something that we've done alongside Fresh Tape, which has had its disadvantages, like how I have been like the most distracted CEO in history because I'm trying to also run another company and parent this little nugget. Are you a little nugget? And I think that it's been great because we have these users day to day, like we have daily users in our office that can tell us, what would make the product better, with the Fresh Tape team being able to be a resource to Gondola and being able to do designs and social and all the other things that Fresh Tape helps out with. So it's been a blast.
And why do you think that giving credit matters in the social media kind of landscape? Because traditionally it's been an afterthought almost.
It's funny that like it's been an afterthought and it hasn't been prioritized because of the medium, and it's been limited by by two things. Number one, duration of the content, right? If you think of how a TV show has had credits for years, it also had like 30 minutes of runtime and time for credits at the end. Whereas we're talking about videos on Vine that are 6 seconds, and millions of pieces of content coming out every day on social media, and that's like dwarfs the amount of traditional media that comes out. That being said, the reason it's so weird and funny is like the standard was there. It was never like in the last 100 years of content creation for traditional media, TV and film, credits were just standard, right? So we, as an industry, as a creative industry, we've had the standard that like if you make great creative work, you should get credit for it. And it was so normal, but the the total volume of content combined with the duration of it, and the nature, shifting from some things are photo, some things are video, et cetera, led to this world where credit was never prioritized. And we're grateful that we brought that in.
In your mind, kind of what does the future of Gondola look like?
So where Gondola started in the tracking and crediting side of things, it's evolved to really be a tool for finding creators and for creators to be found. And the evolution of it will go towards a much more holistic experience of not only sourcing creatives, but hiring them, paying them, being a tool for them for everything they would need in their creative process with their clients, as well as for the clients themselves to find and manage their creative teams. And then, long term, we want this to be an industry standard where people talk about it the way they talk about IMDb and other crediting tools, where they're like, oh, this video is sick. I wonder who made it. Everybody around the world should be able to say, oh, I'll just check the Gondola. Oh, wow, that was, Ashley. She's really talented.
Shout out Ashley.
Shout out Ashley.
Yeah. And speaking of Gondola, that brings us to our creator shout out, where each week we like to shout out creators who have really been inspiring us lately. Is there a creator that you like to shout out? Because we work with part of like the Fresh Tape ethos. We work with so many awesome freelancers every day. Is there anyone that's been inspiring you lately?
So shout out to actually two different groups that are doing very different types of content, but doing it in a great way. The first is Respective Collective. It's an agency out of New York. Chris, who runs that team, has had this amazing like Rolodex of musical artists and festivals, and they come out of a festival like Rolling Loud with beautiful content, and it's like the kind of stuff that catches your eye when you're scrolling through the feed, and the access they have is extraordinary, and they just do really great work. And it's awesome to see who's behind that. And the other group is in the Warner Brothers Discovery group. There is this team that's producing these vodcasts like this, but with some of the biggest artists or biggest names in sports, like Von Miller. I think Taylor Rooks they're shooting right now. They had Mookie Betts. Like the list goes on. Travis Hunter from CU, and they're creating it with a small and lean team. So it's really awesome on Gondola to be able to see who's behind it and how much work is going into it. I've seen Andrew Moore from their team manage 3 cameras on his own and mics. So I really love those two teams. They've done really great work.
There is a creator I would love to shout out as well. Cameron Goldberg, Somatic Cinema is what he goes by. We've worked with him a few times. He's an FPV drone pilot, and the stuff he does is insane. You've met him before, right? Oh, yeah. Like in person.
Cam's the man. He's also like, he's so talented, and you wouldn't realize like all the different brands and big stars he's shot FPV with. And like of all the things to film, FPV is not only is it like the unique, trendy, cool kind of content to see, it's scary. You're talking about making content within a couple feet with a drone that you're trying to control, that you aren't holding like in your hand. With like Leo Messi, the risk is high. So every time he goes to do a shoot, he is at a very different insurance risk level than we are holding cameras. So it's pretty awesome.
I've had a great opportunity to be on a shoot with him over the summer where we did some outdoor stuff for a community called Arrowhead, but it's just amazing getting to see him work. And it was right off of the first time that he had worked with Inter Miami to do like some stuff for Messi when Messi joined the team, and he was just buzzing about it. And it was so cool. He was like showing me the videos. It was just so cool to see the work that he was doing. And then like he'll flip and do something like entirely different, like some kind of like fly throughs of like, I know recently he did like one for a cruise ship where he did like a whole fly through of a cruise ship. It's like insane the level of like different things you can do, but also like the quality that comes. Like it feels cinematic, even though he's flying this like tiny drone through these like incredibly tight spaces.
It's awesome. I think that actually that thing you just described is a feature we really look for as a company and creators, and something I admire a lot. When you work in sports or entertainment, you're around the biggest stars in the world. And a lot of us have this natural instinct to like be fans, get super excited when we're seeing a superstar. But we have to like be professional and treat them with respect, be cool. And I really love when creators, no matter how long they've been in the world, still in their hearts are excited by it and still feel like they're lucky that they get to work with these superstars and they're not jaded. And then they end up getting to like still show off how professional they can be and how good they can be at their jobs. That balance. I don't want somebody to go too professional and lose the, what got them into this in the first place, nor do I want them to be like, oh my God, Leo Messi, I will not be able to film this. I'm just, So that balance is really what we look for in creatives.
Yeah. The excitement, it's contagious around set. But I totally agree. It's so cool what they do.
It's also important. One other thing is to know like a good creative has, let's say, 3 features when it comes to working with big talent that really matter to me. Number 1, they should love it. They'd be excited, like I just said before. Number 2, staying professional, still being able to produce great content. And number 3 is understanding the client so that little mistakes don't happen. So like if you're working with the Colorado Avalanche, one thing that's really important is to know the lineup and to know people's positions so you don't go to a goalie and say like, do a goal celebration. And they're just like, why? That's what? 10 goalies in NHL history have scored a goal. That's so unlikely for me. And I would be celebrating somebody else scoring on me. It's not going to work out. So knowing the client and being able to talk to who they are without, making glaring errors is really important.
Perfect. Well, if any of you listening would love a chance to be featured on a show, make sure to drop your Gondola link in the comments. We'll look at them. Thank you so much for being on. And Ava, thank you as well.
I don't think people realize that we like straight up, we get an email every day with every single person that signed up for Gondola, including when they add credits. We know like what new companies are being credited and stuff like that. So like if like you say, hey, I'm on Gondola, there's no way that the Gondola team knows I exist. Like there's a really strong chance that not only do you exist in our minds, but that we've celebrated you in internal Slack channels and stuff like that. So
yes. Awesome. Thank you again for being on. Thank you, Ava, as well for being on.
Ava, did you enjoy being on the podcast? Are you a celebrity?
You're a celebrity now.
Okay. Will you say what we always say?
Yeah. And as we say at the end of every episode, Ava, how do we round it out?
How do we end every episode? I want a toy.
I want a toy. That's what we say at the end of every episode.
Or sometimes we say, fresh tape, stay sticky.
Stay sticky. Thank you all so much for listening and have a great day.